It's time for another Tech Help Quick Queries video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I am your instructor, Richard Rost. Quick Queries is where I answer some of the questions emailed into me or sent in by YouTube or Facebook, Facebook, or anywhere, my forums on my website, over the past few weeks and months. And maybe these questions don't quite merit a video all in themselves, but they're interesting questions nonetheless. So let's get started. Matt asks, I'm a soccer referee and mentor looking for a way to have a mentor form that I fill out when I'm assigning a referee. I want to send this form to all the mentors and assigners to use. After everyone fills out the form, I want to go to a secure database that we can all access so we can see how our referee is performing. The database would consist of referee info, including pictures, but also assignments that the referee has received. Is Access the program I need to learn? Honestly, Matt, even though I'm a huge Access proponent, I think in this case, Access might be overkill for what you're trying to do. You might just get away with a simple Word document and a shared Google Drive. If you trust all of these people, all the different mentors and referees, just give them access to a Google Drive shared folder, keep the pictures and the forms in there, and that'll probably do what you need. Could you build an Access solution to do this? Yeah. Access's major strong point is an inter-office, in the same physical location database for people to work on. You can use it online, and I got several videos on how to do that, and I'll put some links down below. You could set up an Access database on like a cloud server or SQL server, but I honestly think, unless you've got some real tight security needs, you're probably best off with just a shared Google Drive folder and then use Word and maybe Excel, store the pictures and folders too. I would start simple like that. And then later on, if you decide you need a database, then get back to me for sure. But, I'm not going to try and push everybody into an Access solution. Yes, Access can do this, but is it necessarily the best tool for the job? I don't know. But let me know. Give me your feedback. Next up, a different Matt has a question about the helper data video. He says, regarding your helper data video, why did you use 2 tables instead of 1? I understand normalization, but I thought the point was to reduce the quantity of small tables. I got the concept for your helper table in another video, but I implemented it before watching this one. I put a type field in the helper table instead of creating a helper type T, and it seems to be working. I just wanted to make sure I'm not missing something or setting myself up for some future pain. There's always future pain, Matt, when you're dealing with Access. Okay, for those of you not familiar with the helper data table, what this basically does is it gets rid of all the tons of small little tables you might have in your database. So for example, if you want to track name prefixes like Mr., Miss, Mrs., whatever, suffixes, junior, third, senior, lead sources, gender, any other little list, you won't have a million tables out here. All right, you can store that all in a helper table. Okay, and you can put your little lists in here. It's basically a table full of lists. Okay, now what Matt is saying is that instead of using a helper type ID and linking to a helper type table, he just put this description straight in here. Yeah, that'll work just fine. I like the 2 table situation because yes, it is better for proper normalization, and normalization doesn't always have to be perfect. In fact, I talk about it with multiple addresses. When you have orders for a customer, you want to copy that address to the order, which kind of violates normalization rules, but you want to know, historical data. You want to know when that order was placed, what was the address at that point. This is, a lot of this is preference. I prefer it this way. But if you were to have like name prefix here, yeah, that's an example where you really kind of do want to normalize that, and you'll be making 2 tables instead of 50. Okay. I wouldn't copy name prefix to each one of these records because that's an example of where if you want to make 1 change here, now you got to change 30 records over here. If a single table system is working for you, great. All right. Me, I can just look and say, okay, marital status is 3, and then I got to come over here and put, I guess I don't have any over here, but then you'd put the bunch of 3 records in. Okay. I wouldn't say you're setting yourself up for future pain. It's just if you're going to change the name suffix, you're going to have to change it in all of these records over here. That's why I got a 2 table situation. I'd rather have 2 tables than 30 is the point of the helper data. Okay? I hope that answers your question. Sirius says, I'm getting a following general reading error. Access database engine cannot find the input table or query frame assignments summary. Make sure it exists and that its name is spelled correctly. Well, first thing is make sure it exists and that its name is spelled correctly. Second thing, you're breaking my cardinal rule number 1, which is don't use anything except for letters and numbers in your object names. Get rid of those spaces and that dash. That can cause weird problems in different places. Also, a general reading error sometimes tells me that you've got hardware issues. You've got a hard drive problem, or you might even have a networking issue. And if it can't find the file, it could be because you've got a connection problem there somewhere. So I'm going to suggest run down my troubleshooter. That's this guy, my online troubleshooter for Access. And it's got a whole big long list of stuff to try in order. Try all this stuff. And if you get through this entire list and you still got a problem, well, it could be a hardware issue. But definitely, if you can, fix your object names. Get rid of those spaces and that dash right there. I've seen that cause all kinds of weird problems. Pisk Nikolov is asking if there's a way to reference images by their relative path instead of hard coding the full path name like C:\pictures/ whatever into your images. When of course, you store images in your file folders. You don't store images in your databases. If you haven't watched images, go watch that. If you haven't watched my How to Deal with Images video, go watch that. But yeah, if you want to store a relative path, that's okay. I recommend storing a relative path based on the current folder that the database is run out of. Have it as a subfolder under your database folder. And to do that, you need something called CurrentProject.Path. That'll give you the path that the current database file is running out of. I cover it in a couple of different extended cuts, but I also cover it in my Access Developer 33 class. But I'm pretty sure I cover it in these extended cuts too. And it looks like maybe in my check icon file video. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I check it in there because here we're checking the database icon, the little icon picture that goes with the database. And to find that, you've got to also know the current project's path. So check this video out. I'll put a link down below. Ramachandran wants to know if you can run a query as part of an if function. In other words, if the user logs on and is not an admin, execute this query, otherwise execute this other query. You can't do it as part of an if function, but you could do it in an event with an if-then statement. Go watch my if-then video. You do it right here. If the user is an admin, then run this query. Else if whatever, run this query, else run that query. So you can certainly do it, just not with a function. That function is good for returning values, but you can't execute stuff with it. Pitsy Cool asks if I could include the amount of interest along with the loan payment amount in the loan payments video. All I do is I show you what that monthly payment should be. Right? We give you the dates and then the amount of the payment. Okay? But we don't break down how much of that's principal and how much is interest. That's a little more complicated. I do cover it in my Access Expert Level 30 class. Right, we'll use the PMT function and we'll break down, right, of that payment, how much is interest, how much is principal. And of course, it changes every month, right? The amount of interest gets smaller and the amount of principal gets bigger. I also cover it in my Excel class in Expert Level 6. I do the same thing because the same functions work in Access as in Excel. So in here, for example, we go through a couple of different scenarios using the PMT function, calculating interest rates, all that good stuff too. So whether you want to learn about it in Access or in Excel, I've got you covered. Jim says he wants to set up a form to do simple calculations regarding the year, but he's getting the syntax wrong. He's got equals 2023 minus model year. He gets a proper result, but I'd like to use the current year function. So instead of 2023, it'd be valid in subsequent year. I tried year and I tried year date, but not getting a number. It should look like this. All right, let's say you want to take the number of years since 1990, right? Equals year and then date. And when in doubt, always put that open close parentheses around date. It's a function that doesn't take a value in, but it returns a value. Now, Access will sometimes get rid of those, but I always type them in anyways just to make sure. And make sure it doesn't put that inside of quotes. Okay? Then from that, either subtract the 1990 or subtract whatever your year field is if it's another field on a form like a control, for example, and make sure you put that inside of brackets because, again, Access will sometimes try to put that inside of quotes on you. So there you go. That should work. Need more help with this? Check out my year, month, day video. More help on those functions. And another very helpful video as far as working with dates is my date math video. This slightly weird question is presented without comment. Linda wants to know if in my invoicing database, if the prices change for a product, for example, will the older orders change? And in the way that this video is designed, the way that this database is built, no, because you're just manually typing in the prices for each line item. So if you have no product pricing to change. However, in the extended cut for the members, I do create a product table, and you can pick the product and hit a button and it adds it to the order. And that also copies the product pricing at that moment, so it will not change old orders. Now, in my expert classes, if you take my full course, this is something that I actually did intentionally to teach the users how, if you put, for example, a product combo box in the order details, in the line items, and you let them pick a product and just link the price to it, if the pricing changes in the product table, it will change in all of your old orders, and that's bad. So we have to use an event, like an after update event, to update the pricing in the order and copy it from the product table so you have it at that moment. And again, this is all covered in my invoicing video. In the extended cut for the members, I do show you how to make a product table, and then you click and you copy over the product information up into the order. All right, we make a little product table with a combo box. You pick the product, you hit the add button, and it puts it right up here in the order, and it copies the information with an event. So it's not linked to the original product. It's the same thing, for example, if you want to have the address of the customer, you want to copy that address to the order so you have their address at that moment in time, and it's not going to change if the customer's address changes. Richard wants to know, cool name, by the way. He's got his company information stored in a table with a query in a form, of course, called company. It should be company T, but okay. And he wants to know how to get that information to appear on his other forms, and I'm assuming reports, like your company's name and address and stuff, so that if you change it, you don't have to change it in a whole bunch of other places. I get it. I show how to do this in a couple of my different classes. I have a tech help video that'll probably be most helpful. I call it the system defaults table. Same thing. You've got, some default values. Last name of, I just got last name. You can put company name in there. You could put in there your data, your company address, phone number, that kind of stuff, and have that show up anywhere you want. And really, it's just a matter of using a DLookup wherever you want to have it. Just DLookup the values from your company table and display them in a field, on a form, on a report, wherever you want it. So DLookup's what you want. Prerack wants to know if it's possible to change the title enter parameter value when you do a parameter query and it pops up the little message box. It says enter parameter value. No, you cannot customize that text to the best of my knowledge. If you use a query parameter, you will always see enter parameter value right there. There's no way around that I know of. If anybody out there knows a way, let me know. I'm always looking to learn. What you can do, though, is use your own form instead of relying on parameter query values. Make a form that's got whatever fields you want in it, and then that can have whatever title on top you want. And then the query will get the value from that form. And this video explains how to do that. And it's a lot more elegant than parameter query values. Another one posted without comment. Shh, be very, very quiet. I get this question a lot. Moses asks, he's delooked up a value. How do I save that to a table? You have to use an event of some kind to handle that value. So DLookup gets the value, right? But you're going to need some kind of event to save it. So if you got a DLookup field just in a form, it'll display the value for you, but it's not going to save it anywhere, okay? You'll have to use some kind of programming event or a macro, like an after update event, for example, where after you update a field, it'll DLookup something and then save it in the table. Or you can use a button with an on-click event. There's a million ways to do it. It all depends on how you're trying to do it, but you've got to have some kind of code somewhere that says, DLookup this value and save it in this table for me, or save it in this form field, or whatever. Robert says he tried to use ChatGPT and he received a message saying they were at capacity and to get on a waiting list. Yeah, they've been pretty busy ever since they were released to the public. They actually have a paid membership, and I've been using it a lot. So it's $20 a month to become a paid member, and then you get access even when they're full. And if that's something, I use it a ton for ideas for things and for like reformatting lists. Like you got something in an Excel table, you want to reformat it as a comma separated list, it's easy just to copy and paste it into ChatGPT and let it do that grunt work for you. I've also been using it for making titles. You know, like I'll give it the text of my video and I'll say, make a catchy title out of this and give me some keywords that I can use. And so it's great at things like that. I also just recently got accepted to Bard, which is Google's version of AI. And the nice thing about Bard is that it actually can go out to the live internet and look things up. You can ask it questions like, you know, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? Whereas ChatGPT is limited to the information that it was fed from 2021 and earlier. So Bard's got that. I'm sure they're going to add that to ChatGPT eventually as well. But I've been playing with both of them, and the results are kind of mixed between them. Some things I like Bard better for, some things I like ChatGPT for. Microsoft has actually added it to Bing. So this AI is coming, so I'm spending some time learning it so I can see how best to integrate it with Access to teach you guys. So it's getting there. Yeah, continuing on with ChatGPT, a lot of people have mentioned to me that they use it for Python. I've never used Python myself, but apparently it's better at writing Python code than VBA. It does get tripped up on more advanced stuff, but like Garrett says here, it'll get you 90% of the way there. Yeah, it's a great way to get started. Definitely double check the code before you use it in any kind of production environment. Make sure that it's working perfectly. But it's a good stepping stone to get you moving in the right direction. You know, give you a framework at least of code. I've done some stuff with it that it makes up properties on its own sometimes. It's doing it best it can, but it's good to get you started in the right direction. And of course, people are asking ChatGPT to write poems about Microsoft Access. That's pretty cool, but if you have not yet heard Carl Donnerbauer's Access song, you must go watch it now. I will put a link down below in the link section. It is awesome. Stargazer, that's a pretty cool way of spelling Stargazer. I like that. Saying he's using my tip for graying out fields, but it's not working with continuous forms. Everything gets grayed out. Yes, a lot of these techniques that I show you, they'll only work with single forms because as soon as you switch to a continuous form, then it changes things. If you change the color or the locked property or pretty much any property of a control, it changes that whole group of controls, right? Family size is the is the text box for the entire form on every record. There are some tricks you can play with, like conditional formatting to have different colors, but you can't hide, unhide, lock, enable, disable different fields like that. For different records in the same control on a continuous form. It just doesn't work. Yeah, there are some advanced tricks you can play, but pretty much no. There are some advanced VBA techniques that can kind of get around that, and I cover them, I think, in one of my developer classes. If you want to know which class that's in, let me know, and I'll try to find it for you. Philip says, this sounds like a stupid question. First of all, let me stop you there. As Mr. Garrison says on South Park, there's no such thing as stupid questions, only stupid people. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. He says he's watched many Access tutorials and many of them create a table relationship on the relationship screen in the database tools menu. I noticed you've not done this. Are linked tables really? Well, linked tables. Okay, so linked tables are linking to tables in other database files, which I'm assuming that's not what you're talking about. As far as linking tables, meaning making relationships between them, it's not necessary unless you want to enforce referential integrity. So to get a good understanding of that, watch my relationships video first. And you can see the relationships window right there. I talk about it in this video. And then go watch this video on referential integrity. That's basically referential integrity is when you have two tables where one depends on the other. For example, let's say customers and orders, right? And you want to make it so that you don't have any orders that are missing customers or order details that don't have a parent order associated with them. So you can enforce referential integrity to prevent that. And you can also create something called cascade deletes, where if you delete a customer, it deletes all of their orders and all of their order details. And that can be very dangerous. I don't like that. I try to avoid that if possible. Now, the one major downside with creating relationships like that on the system level is that they do not work with linked tables. Okay, if you split your database where you've got a front end that's got your forms and reports and your code in it, right? And you split it so your back end is your table file, right? Referential integrity and global relationships don't work across multiple database files like that. The tables all have to be in one database file. And even if you do something like upscale your database to SQL Server or something like that, these relationships don't work. So that's why I generally try not to rely on them heavily, because once you get to a certain point, they're useless. They're good for simple, small databases, but if you do decide to upscale later on, you can't rely on them. And you have to actually come up with coding solutions to handle, if I delete an order, then my code has to delete all of the child line item records. So, and that's not too hard to do, but you can't rely on cascade deletes for everything. So hope that answers your question. BNW says, we homeschool our 2 children. They want to put together a program to track their students' progress. Would I recommend to Access or Excel? Would I be interested in creating this program? Yeah, I get asked this a lot. Lots of people are looking for something to track students' grades, attendance, transcripts, all that stuff. And it's on my back burner. I've been wanting to put together a database like this for a while now. I've got a couple of different tip videos that cover some of it. Like I've got an old tip video here that covers doing student attendance. I'll put a link to this down below. You basically use an append query. And tracking grades is an example that I do in a lot of my Excel classes. It's really up to you. If it's just 2 kids, I would just do it in Excel myself. I tend to start most projects in Excel and work with it a little bit until I've got, 20, 30, 40 rows. And then that gives me, it's good for templating and for prototyping, so I can see what fields I'm going to need, what kind of flow I need, what I want to automate. So I generally will start something in Excel and then port it over to Access, unless you want to learn Access. I mean, this is a good example of a database that I would use in a class to teach someone how to build an Access database. So I would suggest start it in Excel if you're not already using Excel, and that will give you a good template for starting your Access database. So I see that you took my Access Beginner 1 class, because this is where you posted the comment. Just keep going. Go to level 2, level 3. By the time you're up into the expert classes, you'll be able to make relationships and do all that fun stuff. So, yeah, start in Excel and move up to Access later on. 2 kids, yeah. If you got 200 kids, then yeah, definitely Access. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Nye says he can create everything, tables, queries, and so on, with VBA code, but you can't create forms or reports with VBA. Yes, you can, but tables and queries are things you can create using VBA at runtime very easily, and it can be seamless to the user. You can change table structure, you can create whole queries. But in order to modify forms and reports or to create whole new ones, it can be done using VBA. I don't have a lesson on it because it's something that is very rare, and I think I've done it maybe 2 or 3 times in my entire 30-year career. But it's not something I get asked a lot for. But it is possible. But it's something that's more of a developer tool, because you have to switch the form into design view, and then you can use VBA to create and manipulate controls, and then you got to save it and then flip back to form view. So it's a bit of a pain. But it can be done. If enough of you out there want to see how to do it, post a comment down below. And if enough people are interested, I'll make a lesson on it. Ryan, commenting on my multi-table forms video, says he had an issue where he had the customer table and the contacts table joined together, probably with a query, and he had that in one form. And if he deleted the contact, it would take the customer with it. Yeah, that can be a problem. When you join 2 tables together like that, you might not be sure which of the 2 is going to be deleted if you delete one. That's why A, I don't like to delete records, and B, I had this video, the multi-table forms video, where I explain you shouldn't do that. Don't bring together multiple tables like that into one single form. Do a form with a subform. It's okay to display information, but I'd lock those fields and make sure you're only allowing one of those tables to be edited. Go watch this form for more of this form. Go watch this video for more details on that one. Jan Holm over on Facebook and my Facebook group. Yeah, I still use Facebook once in a while, not often. I don't like Facebook. Asks, what's the problem with using an ACCDR file instead of an ACCDE file? ACCDE actually takes the database file and encrypts it and makes it executable only so that people can't get into your forms and reports. ACCDR stands for runtime. And you could take a normal ACCDB file and just change the file extension to DR. And that will make it look like a runtime only version. And it locks a lot of stuff out so the user can't touch it, just like it would in the runtime version. It hides a lot of stuff on the ribbon, locks them out of some stuff. But if they know what they're doing, they can just rename the ACCDR file to ACCDB. So then they can go in and modify stuff. So if you want, make an ACCDE file first, an execute only file. Then you could rename that to DR if you want to. I like to use just DE files because then you can still give them access to some of the things that you might want to, like more options on the ribbon and stuff like that, without having to make a custom ribbon. I am going to be making a video on just ACCDR files very soon, and I will be covering customizing the ribbon in my upcoming developer classes. So stay tuned. Thanks for the question. Michael Duncan, one of my gold members, asked if it's possible to highlight the entire row in a continuous form, like all the way across the row. If you got a continuous form here, right, that's all you get. Now you can use conditional formatting to highlight the field that is selected. That's pretty easy to do. You can come into format here, pick all of these guys, go to conditional formatting, new rule, right? You could say field has focus and then set it like bright yellow. Okay. And then when you save this, all right, whatever you've got clicked on will now have the focus and will be yellow, but you can't do the whole row across. I tried. I can't even think of a solution with VB, because when a field has focus, remember that is the field, the whole column. So conditional formatting is the only thing that works across multiple rows in a continuous form like this. The only thing I could suggest would be to use a list box if you want the whole row to be selected. Because if you make, let's say, a list box in here, right? Delete this stuff. Okay, create a list box. This guy. All right, let's look up customers, bring in a bunch of fields. And whatever, next. There you go, and then we'll just finish it. Okay, now that list box, the whole row gets selected. That's probably what you're looking for. So if you need that look, use a list box, and if you want to edit that record, you put a double-click event on it. So you double-click on this, and it opens up the customer that you want. And I show you how to do that in my on double-click event video. Go watch that one. Siuhada asks if I can create a simple supplier debt list payment in Microsoftaccess. Yeah, I notice you. I see you. I read all the comments eventually. I mean, I don't always get to them right away. As you can see, as of right now, this is 10 days old. And I've got stuff that's years old in there. I go through them when I sit down. I go through the most recent ones first and go backwards. I know. I should do it the other way, but this is easier because YouTube doesn't give you a way to sort in reverse order. But a lot of times I get questions from people that they're asking me to help them build a database. I have no idea what you mean by a simple supplier debt list payment. What is that? I'm sorry. I need more information in order to help you. Now, it sounds to me like, all right, supplier debt list payment. So you want to basically track, accounts receivable or accounts payable? One of those. Suppliers are your people that you buy stuff from. Debt list payment. So are you, I don't understand which end of the transaction you're on. There's accounts payable, there's accounts receivable. Payables are things you owe to other people. Receivables are things that are owed to you. Now, as far as tracking accounts receivable go, people that owe you money, I got a video for that right here. I'll put a link down below. Accounts payable, you can just do in the opposite direction. Build the same thing, but instead of building invoices, you're building, bills that you have to pay, and then you just track those as payables. It's the same thing backwards. And I've got a whole seminar on tracking payables. I do aged accounts payable, all kinds of stuff. So there's a link for that as well. So both of them, I got them. I don't know what you mean by simple. I mean, if you want simple, just make a table with who you owe what and then track when it's paid. Right? I need more information, folks. I can't. I can't. I wish I could read minds. But yeah, I noticed you. I see everything. Fidnafish asks, I just converted my database. Converted from what? Older version, Excel? What are you converting from? And none of my buttons or drop-down menus are working. Okay, not working doesn't tell me anything. What exactly is happening? You click on it and it doesn't fire off code. I don't know. I need more information, just like the last guy. You got to give me some more specifics. Screenshots help. I know, unfortunately, you can't post screenshots on YouTube, but you can go to my website, go to the Ask page. All right, got a whole page with a whole bunch of different links on ways that you can ask me questions. Even if you're a non-student, I got a visitor forum you can go to. All right. But the first thing that I always do when there's a weird problem is run down my troubleshooter. Okay. There's a video on this page, and there's a list of stuff to try in order that will try to hopefully help you find your problem. If it's a problem that I've seen a million times, like there's a particular error message or something's happening that's repeatable, then yeah, it probably has an easy solution. But if it's something weird, like just buttons aren't working, run down this, compact and repair, make sure you're not running it online, restart your database, restart your computer, this kind of stuff. Make sure you're running out of a trusted location, especially for you. If you've got VB code in your database and the buttons aren't working, chances are the code's not running because it might not be in a trusted location. So make sure you set that up. So there's lots and lots of stuff you can try in here. Run down this, okay? Tons of stuff. Ahmad asks if it's possible to open an Access database on a Mac. Nope. Next question. No, seriously, I get asked this all the time. Yeah, there's other versions of Microsoft products like Word and Excel for the Mac, but not Access. You'll have to run some kind of a Windows emulator. I'm not familiar with them. I don't use Macs. I've never used Macs at all. The last Apple product I think I even touched was an Apple II back in high school. So I'm not a Mac fan. Sorry, that's just me. I'm a PC guy. PC and Android. So sorry. If there are any of you out there who are Mac fans and you run Access on a Mac, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say. So post your setup and what software you're using down below in the comments section. Maybe you can teach me something and I can pass it on to everybody else. This question comes up a lot in my forums on my website. Here's someone asked a couple months ago. And yeah, the guy's got some. Alex is my right-hand man. He has Mac stuff. He uses Mac. So he's got some different options and stuff down here. I'll put a link to this thread down below. Next up, Jeff asks, are there any situations where an ACCDE file will error and an ACCDB won't? Yeah. ACCDE is basically compiled machine language, and so it is a lot less forgiving than ACCDB files are because the VB interpreter will still be running through the ACCDB code as it runs. And if it doesn't hit a particular spot that's got a problem, it might just ignore it. So the way to check for this is to compile your database. All right, we got a whole separate video on compiling your database, and you might need to decompile your database as well. There's a link on this page that explains that. And during the compile process, Access might catch any errors in your VB code that aren't necessarily being caught when you create an ACCDE file, and that could be what's causing the problem. If not, run down the troubleshooter. Hullabaloo gave a bunch of background, and his question down here below is he's got active customers only in an isActive queue. And he says that in a video, I told you not to base forms on queries. I don't remember ever saying that. If I'm wrong, please tell me which video and at what time index I said that, because it's perfectly fine to base forms on queries. Sometimes I tell absolute beginners not to do that because it can confuse them. But generally, yeah, you're going to use queries all the time to base on your forms and reports. An easy way to switch that, though, if you want to see both active and not active customers, is to base the form on the table and then just use a filter to either show active or inactive customers. That's the easiest way to do it. Yeah, there's ways you could do it with code and stuff like that, but filters are the easy way. But yeah, I don't generally recommend not to base your forms on queries. That's perfectly fine. And if maybe you're watching a video from 10, 15 years ago, and I'll have to get in my DeLorean and go yell at older me or younger me. Yeah. But here's a video on filtering in case you don't know how to do that. I would do this for what you're doing instead of using a query. If you just want to switch between active and inactive customers, and you can save the filter state in the form design too. Go to the properties for the form and turn filter on load on. Hatham asks if I could do more with ActiveX controls for image list and image combo box. Honestly, I tend to stay away from ActiveX controls. I don't like them. They're very hard to distribute if you're sharing your database with other people or on a network. If I can do something with just access, I prefer to do that. There are very few controls that I actually like to use, but there are some that I've done some videos on in the past, like the progress bar control. So if enough of you want to see me cover these controls, post a message down below in the comments, and I will consider making a video on them. Again, folks, not enough information to answer this question. I get tons of these. I just skip most of them, but I can't. There's not enough information here for me to help you. I want to help you, but I need more specifics. All right, refreshing a form with a table linked to an SQL database causes problem. I don't know. I don't have your database. I can't see what the problem is. Sorry. Chances are 9 times out of 10, without being able to actually look at your database, I'm not going to be able to tell what the problem is. And I don't do that. So sorry. Try my troubleshooter. Annie wants to know if you could still buy Office Professional in retail stores like Best Buy, or don't they offer it in stores? Honestly, I haven't been in a Best Buy in years. Probably since well before the pandemic. I just don't. I shop online. So I don't know. I really don't want to pay the monthly subscription. I get it. I fought subscriptions too when all the software vendors started making everything a subscription. But now I actually kind of prefer it because A, you can cancel anytime. I mean, Microsoft Office is something that I've been using for 30, 40 years. I'm going to continue to use it, so that's never going to go away. But some other software, I would rather spend, $9.95 a month to use it for a month or two if I need it. And then if I decide I don't like it, I just get rid of it versus paying $200 up front for a piece of software and then I don't like it and don't use it anymore. So I like the subscription model myself. A quick search of Best Buy's website. Yeah, they still sell it. There it is. I see home and business. I see home and student. I see personal. Not sure what else they got. Family. So yeah, check it out and see. I mean, this is something you could have Googled yourself or gone to Best Buy and asked them if they have it. But I guess you can ask me. That's okay. I don't mind. Now, I do have a page on my website that explains buying Access, and the guys over at Access Forever just did, because Microsoft has always been very confusing with all of the different models, and their website's taking forever to load up. There it goes. Access Forever. Check this site out. Lots of good stuff on this site. They have all kinds of up-to-date bug lists and stuff like that. But Microsoft has always been very confusing with all of their different offerings and options and enterprise and home and business. And so, yeah, here you go. Tells you what it's included in, what it's not included in. They got lots of good stuff on their site. But here's my table. They do have Office Professional. There's a link right here. One-time purchase. If you want a one-time purchase, that's up to you. But $8.25 a month? You can't beat that. Come on. To use it for 2 years, that's $200. That's less than the cost of buying the Office Pro 2021. You'd have to use it for what? 4 years for it to break even, roughly. So I like subscriptions. Sign me up for the subscription any day. Sui says about my search form video that it's working fine, except it doesn't include in the search any new records I've entered in the database since the query was built. That does not sound right. That sounds very strange. It almost sounds like you somehow, when you built it, made a new table, maybe with a make table query, and the search form is pulling records from that because you're adding new records into a different table than the search form is looking at. So definitely check the record source of where the search form is getting its data from, because that should not behave like that. A query is basically, when you run the query, it looks at its data source, which is usually a table or another query, and it pulls in the records at that moment. So I got no idea. Again, without being able to see this database, I can't really tell you what's going on. David says he's working with replication IDs, and they're very frustrating to work with because a lot of standard functionalities don't work well. The worst part is you get a type mismatch almost everywhere. Yeah, and you're right. There aren't a lot of resources for them. I personally don't use replication IDs that much. Replication IDs are great, but they're these big, gigantic, long string. They're basically, you got to treat them as string values, whereas auto numbers are long integers. When you work with replication IDs, they look like that. They're not strings, but there's the functions to change the GUID to string and then go back again, string to GUID. And you have to treat them as strings like that when you're doing anything in your VBA code. They're a pain in the butt. I don't like replication IDs. The thing is that they guarantee almost that you're not going to get a duplicate value. But I personally find that it's better for Access databases to use random auto numbers because they're random numbers, they're still long integers, and they behave exactly like regular auto numbers do, except the number's random instead of sequential. And yeah, the chances of you getting a duplicate are a lot higher than with a replication ID, but it's still astronomical. And I cover the math in this video. But unless you're dealing with millions and millions of records, a random auto number works better in Access, and I think it's just fine. So instead of using replication IDs, I use these. That's me personally. But yeah, okay. Hope this helps. But yeah, replication IDs are a pain in the butt. And the only reason I did a video on them is because some people asked me about them, and people do use them. I've used them before, mostly to interface with outside systems that have replication IDs, and they're just a pain. Malcorub said that he asked ChatGPT to write a poem about Access, and I'm just going to post this here without comment. Maybe I'll send this over to Carl Donabauer, and he can add this as a verse to another one of his Access songs. This is awesome. I love this. Aditya asks if it's possible to add data to different tables at the same time using forms. You haven't given me enough information to properly answer your question, but if you are adding to related tables, then you can relate them together. I recommend a form with a subform, and then you can add records to both at the same time. But if you've got like one standard form that's like one single form, and you want to take that information and put it into multiple tables, that's going to require some coding. You need to make an unbound form. And then when you hit your go button, it can take whatever data is necessary from whatever fields and put them in whatever other tables it has to go to using either a record set or an SQL statement. Again, with just what you've given me here, I don't know what you're trying to do. So visit the Ask a Question page and give me some more information. Peter is asking a question related to my association database. Now, if you haven't seen this yet, my association database is for any group. Or you want to track anything about a group, whether it's a church, a membership organization, a golf club, anything, bowling league, whatever. That's why I call it an association. I tried to find a generic name for it. And in that database, I have a person table where you can track people, right? Members, for example. And then I have a separate demographic table, which is in a one-to-one relationship with it. And it's got separate information related to a person, like their gender, their marital status, all that stuff, right? And Peter wants to know, why don't I just put that stuff in the person table? It's a matter of preference. It's a personal choice, personally for me. I like to keep information that I might not necessarily have on a majority of my people in a separate table, so it doesn't clutter the main table. Like with customers, for example, if you have this demographic information only on a very small percentage of your customers, I don't like to waste fields in the customer table by putting stuff in there that I've only got for a tiny percentage of them. And so I'm assuming with demographics, for example, you'd only have them on a small percentage of your members. If you've got them for 90% of your members, sure, put it all in one table. That's fine. But with demographics especially, I find that you only have them with a small percentage. Could you put them all in there? Is it wasting space? I mean, no. Access isn't going to waste space if you don't have any data in those fields. I just like less clutter in my main tables. That's all. So things that I only have in a small percentage of records, I put in a separate table. All right? Personal design choice. That's all. Neil wrote to me in an email saying that my denormalization video broke his mind. That's some serious accusations there, Neil. I don't want to break anybody. He's like, it broke all the rules of coding that I've lived by since 1994. Yeah, denormalization is something that you want to teach new students how to normalize their tables correctly. And then as you get into more advanced topics and you've been working with databases for a while, then you see that sometimes not doing that is better for performance. And that's the whole reason behind this video. Think about it this way. If you've got 1 million customers, okay, and in your database, those 1 million customers each have 10 orders. So that's 10 million orders, okay? And you want to sort those customers based on their total order sum, right, for their whole history. All right, so if you run that and you're running over a network, so the data's got to come across the line, right? or even in a database server, it's still got to crunch all those numbers. It's got to calculate all of those order totals for all of those orders for every customer 10 million times. Okay? Versus just if you were to denormalize and store that total in the customer's record, or even in a temporary table like you suggest, that's fine. That will definitely speed up the performance of that query. So you have to go against proper normalization, which says don't store redundant data, right, if you're normalizing. But sometimes for performance issues, you might want to. So that's all. That's all I was trying to say. By and large, you do want to definitely stick to the rules of normalization unless you've got a good reason to not do that. So I didn't mean to break anything, but yeah. It kind of broke my mind a little bit too when I first read about it. I'm like, wait a minute, what? We could do what? Oh, okay. So that worked. Tammy Tam asks if, what do you do if the customer list is long? You got 100,000 customers in your combo box, right? Is there a better option? Because yeah, if you got 100,000 customers, that combo box is going to take forever to load up. So there's a couple things you could do. What I would do is have a cascading combo box where you can pick something first to filter them to break that list down. All right. Even if your first combo box is a list of letters, right? Or just like even A through D, E through M, whatever, break that list down. Then the second combo box is more manageable. So I'd recommend a cascading combo box. Check that out and see if that helps you. Right. In this example, I do city and state. So you could pick the state first, Florida, and then you get a list of cities in that state. So you don't get a big, gigantic, long list of cities. And yes, thank you very much for your comments. Flattery will get you everywhere. No idea how to pronounce that, sorry. But they're asking if after backing up the database, the file is a lot smaller than the original. Is that fine? Generally, when you back up a database, like I show in my backup video, this guy, the file should be the same size, okay? Only if you compact the database will it become smaller. And here's a video on compacting. If you just copy the database file using backup and the file is a lot smaller than the original, that says to me it didn't copy properly. So I would double check and make sure, okay? Farida asked a question, and what I'm commenting on here is your follow-up question. It's been 3 weeks waiting for an answer. First of all, I appreciate that you're a member, okay? But being a member doesn't guarantee anyone an answer. All right, so saying it's been 3 weeks waiting for an answer, that's a little rude. I'm sorry. I go through my YouTube comments maybe once a month, okay? So if you have a question and you want to have a better chance of having it answered, go to the Ask a Question page on my website or post it in the forums on my website. I don't check my YouTube comments that often because I get tons of them, okay? And also, it's on my website very clearly that when you join as a member, even being a platinum member doesn't guarantee you an answer. Tech support is not guaranteed, okay? It just gives you a better chance of me making a video out of your question. All right, so don't complain that it's been 3 weeks and you haven't gotten an answer. Sorry, there's people who've been waiting years and haven't gotten an answer. That's just how it is. All right, I'm not a tech support guy. All right, I make videos, and if your question is good, I'll make a video about it. And I've got a fantastic group of moderators on my website that do a great job of helping me by answering people's questions if you ask them politely, and hopefully they'll give you an answer. Now, as far as your actual question goes, that's not enough information for me to answer the question. So you've got 5 rows of a text in your table. Can you put them together? Yeah, sure. But I need a lot more information than this to answer your question. How are they related together? How does the database know which 5 rows you want? You can make a field to select them. Maybe, right, add a yes/no field to it. But I need a lot more information than this to answer this question. So go to the Ask a Question page. You can come down here and you're a student, so you can go to the appropriate forum, okay? And post your question there and be patient, please. Okay, I do want to help everyone, and I do read all the questions. As you can see, it's been a month since I've gotten down this far on my comments list, but there's people who have been in there for years. All right, it's been a month, and I get it. I get way too many questions. I can't answer them all, and that's why I'm very upfront with people. It's not just because you remember, that's not a guarantee that I'm going to answer your question. I will eventually read it, but I will definitely need more information to help you with this. So visit the website, post your question there. Thank you. Malcorub asks, is there ever a time to use external data, new data source, Excel, append a copy over the append query? Basically, that's like an import, but instead of importing it into a new table, you're just importing it into an existing table. It's just saving a step, basically. All right, external data, new data from file Excel. You pick append a copy. It's just going to take the data out of that Excel spreadsheet and drop it into this table. I have never used this, to be honest with you. I prefer to import it and then use an append query to massage the data properly inside the database myself. It's a matter of personal choice. But if the original table was created from an Excel spreadsheet and you kept all the same field names, then yeah, I could see it saving you a step, but not something that I use regularly. But if it works for you, great, use it. As Swan asks a really good question about my tasks database. He said, is the notes area for all of the tasks combined, or will it change depending on what task you've selected? All right, here's the tasks database, and I use a continuous form with a notes field down here. Now, this is one of those situations where I'm going to tell you, if you want to learn this stuff better, try it yourself and try to figure it out instead of me just giving you the answer, right? But as you click on each one of these records, you'll notice that this will change, okay? When you put a field in the footer or the header of a continuous form, it's bound to whatever control you set it to, like this is notes, and it will be for the current record. So if you click on this one, you'll see this guy's notes. If you click on this one, you'll see this guy's notes, and so on. All right, very good question, and yes, a lot of people ask that question. So there you go. So that'll do it for Quick Queries number 9. I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper, my friends, and I'll see you next time. And if you've got a question that you want answered, visit the Quick Queries page or the Ask a Question page. You'll find links to all this stuff down below. Bye. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and post any comments you may have. I do try to read and answer all of them as soon as I can. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, which is completely free, and click on the bell icon to select all to receive notifications when new videos are posted. Make sure you click the Show More link down below the video to find additional resources and links. You'll see a list of other videos, additional information related to the current topic, free lessons, and lots more. YouTube no longer sends out email notifications when new videos are posted, so if you'd like to get an email every time I post a video, click on the link to join my mailing list. Even if you don't want to become a member, feel free to donate to my tip jar. Your patronage is greatly appreciated and will help keep these free videos coming. I got puppies to feed. How do you become a member? Click on the Join button below the video. After you click the Join button, you'll see a list of all the different membership levels that are available, each with its own special perks. Silver members and up will get access to all of my extended cut tech help videos, one free beginner class each month, and more. Gold members get access to download all of the sample databases that I build in my tech help videos, plus my code vault, where I keep tons of different functions that I use. You'll also get a higher priority if you decide to submit any tech help questions to me, and you'll get one free expert class each month after you finish the beginner series. Platinum members get all the previous perks, plus even higher priority for tech help questions, access to all of my full beginner courses for every subject, and one free developer class each month after you finish the expert classes. These are the full-length courses found on my website, not just for Access, too. I also teach Word, Excel, Visual Basic, and lots more. You can now become a Diamond sponsor and have your name or company name listed on a sponsors page that will be shown in each video as long as you're a sponsor. You'll get a shout out in the video and a link to your website or product in the text below the video and on my website. But don't worry, these free tech help videos are going to keep coming. As long as you keep watching them, I'll keep making more, and they'll always be free. Now, if you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access. It's over 4 hours long, and I just updated it for 2021. You can find it on my website or on my YouTube channel. I'll include a link below that you can click on. And also, if you like Level 1, Level 2 is just $1. Yep, that's all, $1, and it's free for all members of my YouTube channel at any level, even supporters. Want to have your question answered in a video just like this one? Visit my tech help page on my website. You can send me your question there. While you're on my site, feel free to stop by the Access Forum. Lots of good conversations happening there. Be sure to follow my blog, find me on Twitter, and of course, YouTube. Once again, my name is Richard Rost. Thank you for watching this Tech Help video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something today. I'll see you again soon.